Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Mike Lepond from Symphony X and Mike Lepond's Silent Assassins, and you're listening to Metal Nation Radio.
Hey
Okay.
everybody, this is Russ and Rose with Metal Nation. We are here with Mike Lepond of Silent Assassins, DeadRisen, Ross the Boss, and of course Symphony X and 42 other bands. Thank you for spending some time with us today. While the rest of the world's sort of been in limbo, you know, you've been pretty prolific so far this year. So
Yeah, I mean, I've done so many things, and like I said, a lot of it is not even known. And this year, there's the three, and then supposedly later in the year, I'll be on the Death Dealer record that's going to come out with Sean Peck, and and then I think there's another band that's a new album from a band called Everdawn, which is a female fronted band that's going to be coming out too later this year. But I just love doing it. You know, I love working with different musicians and different writers and taking different roles in the different projects and bands. So it's great for me. I just love doing it.
well, let's talk about, I mean, like I said, we're here to talk about the new Silent Assassins album, but let's talk about the two that came out already this year first, if you're good with that. So Ross the Boss album, Born of Fire. So tell us a little bit about that record from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Manowar fan, and I grew up on Manowar, and I love Manowar, and having to work with Ross is it's a very, very special thing to me that I hold dear to my heart. So for this record, Ross had come out with a record. I believe it was in actually 2018,
Yeah.
and then I was surprised that the record company was looking for another record pretty quickly. So we kind of did it in a couple of ways. One way we got the songs together was, I would go to Ross's place, and he runs a batting cage actually in New York, and I would go there, and he would show me his ideas, and then I would take his ideas home, and I would kind of smooth them out, arrange them a little bit, uh, put in some parts to fill in the gaps, and then you'd have a song. So Ross and I did that with about 5 songs from the record. Um, I wrote 2 songs for Ross on my own, and the singer, Mark Lopes, he wrote another 4, I believe, and then you had your album. Now, Mark Lopes writes heavier stuff than what Ross is used to, so I think the album is heavier. It's probably the heaviest thing Ross has done, I think, to date. Um, but we were really happy with it. It's been getting some good press, and it should be fun to play live.
Which is most of the touring that you're doing or supposed to be doing right now, but most of the touring you got going on right now is Ross the Boss, right?
Yeah, I mean Ross. I mean he's just like a machine. He just never comes off the road. He has more energy than I could even dream of having. So between Ross and Symphony X, I've been really, really busy lately with the touring. And then I was supposed to do a tour with Ross in April. Obviously that got postponed. Then I was supposed to do a tour with Symphony X in May, and that got postponed. But the Ross tour has been rescheduled for mid-November. So my fingers are crossed that that happens.
Nice. Well, it'd be wonderful if it does. So, a week after that album came out, you dropped the debut DeadRisen album, which if you saw my review, I truly loved. Fantastic record.
Thank you.
And that I mean, for fans of Mike Lepond, where they probably originally knew you from with Symphony X, this is probably more in that wheelhouse. But
Yeah.
it's just for me, what I actually caught wind of it when I was reviewing your album. That's how I was like, how the hell did I miss this thing? And I think I said in the review, it takes sort of what you were doing with Rod Rivera, the guitar player, and sort of elevated what you guys did with the Rivera Boma project originally. So, but tell us a little bit about the album, the project, because you've got some great talent in the band, and it's a phenomenal debut record. And
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I met Rod in 2007, and we just clicked on so many levels. We became great friends, and we became a great writing team. So originally there was the Rivera Boma band, and I did one album with them. And it just didn't really take off. And then eventually John Boma, the singer, decided that he wanted to just retire from the industry. But, Rod and I wanted to keep going. And we wanted to form a band that just sounded like a live band that is jamming, a jamming band like from maybe like the late 70s, early 80s, where you would go see this band and they would just jam. And we wanted to, we all loved the Ronnie James Dio era of Rainbow. So we wanted to really kind of get an influence from that, but also have the modern production and also have a lot of heavier stuff too, even some stuff that borders on thrash, have basically just be totally open to any kind of style of music. And we didn't want to be pigeonholed into any kind of style, but we just wanted to have great songs, great writing, and great talent, and I really love this record. It took us about 4 years to put the record together because, we all have our own families and our own thing, and we would just try to get together when we can. But, when we got together, it really felt so good, and we got the band together, and we found Will Shaw, a singer out of Pennsylvania who was, not very well known except for Heir Apparent, and just did a phenomenal job, and it just came out better than we could have ever dreamed.
Yeah, all those elements you were talking about are all there in the record. Sorry. You really do pick up sort of on that Rainbow vibe, though, that Ritchie Blackmore vibe. Obviously, Rod's got a lot of influence there, and I picked up a little bit of Schenker and stuff as well, but just a lot of great stuff on that record, and people definitely need to check it out. Let's talk, though, about the reason we're here today.
Okay.
The third Silent Assassins album, Whore of Babylon, was actually supposed to have been out this month, going to come out in June instead. Thank you, COVID. But man, heavy metal is all about the riff, and you brought us another record just packed with monstrous riffs on this beast. So, did you approach this one any differently? Because I know you have sort of I hate to use the word formula because it sounds like it's like you're plugging and playing and everything, but I mean, you have a way of doing things, and you do the vast majority of it by yourself until you take it to other people. But was there anything that you wanted to do with this album that you didn't do before? Anything you want to do to maybe stretch yourself in any way new? Or
I think basically what you're saying is correct. I basically have a kind of formula that that kind of worked for me on the first two records, and I kept it going with this one. I think the only change with this one is in the past, for the most part, I would write the music first,
right,
and then I would see what lyrics I had that would fit it. Now on this record, I switched it around a little bit. For the most part, I had the lyrics first. Now it could have been either just a poem, it could have been an outline, or it could have been the actual lyrics. And I found that doing the lyrics first actually made me think more when I was writing music. So now I could tailor the music specifically to the feel of each verse, each chorus, and almost, for lack of a better word, almost make like a little movie score for each song.
Right.
Um, it was really challenging for me, and it really, I think, helped make the songs have more of an epic feel to them, and I really enjoyed doing it, and I think it worked really well for the kind of songs on this album.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the record. I like all three of the Silent Assassins albums you've done. They've all had something a little bit different going on, and this one felt definitely a little different than the other two, but still had that continuity in it. We've gotten to hear a little bit of it. We've gotten a taste with Dracul Sun and Ironborn. Not right now, my love. And so let's talk about those songs first. Obviously, the first one refers to Vlad the Impaler. The other one, sort of a nod to Game of Thrones.
Yes, exactly. First one, Vlad the Impaler. I needed something really dark kind of thrash riff. Threw some orchestration in there. Some pipe organ in there, make it real dark, scary, but with the straight ahead metal riffing in there. Alan Tecchio, really gritty vocal, what it really needed, just in your face gritty. And Ironborn. With Ironborn, I'm not the type of guy that saw every Game of Thrones, like
right.
Some people, but I saw a lot of it where that word stuck in my head, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting word. That would be a really cool chorus. And then this thing went off in my head, and I was like, wow, okay. So then I kind of wrote the music based on what I was hearing, and I wrote some lyrics from watching the show, and then I also researched it online to get some more things that maybe I would have missed, And then I wanted to put together this real epic, kind of song. Another song, very kind of thrash, Megadeth, Metallica kind of thing, but with a grandiose chorus, almost like maybe a Blind Guardian or something. And it came out really cool. I really liked the way it came out at the end. And I got a lot of good response actually from both songs, but probably Ironborn got even more of a good response.
And considering that this has now been pushed back for another month, are you thinking about releasing a third one as a teaser before we get to the album release?
Yes, the plan was to release one more track, and actually the other day I just saw the video for it, the lyric video for it, and came out really good, so I'm excited. I believe they want to release it sometime later in this month. Maybe they're going to push it into June. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, we're going to have one more lyric video before the release.
Do we get to know what it is, or do we just have to wait and find out?
They don't want me to say, but it's a song
Ides of March. I'll root for that one, but
well, you must be a clairvoyant. I won't go any more than that.
All right. There's so much great stuff on this record, but there's a lot of diversity and stuff too. You got a little bit of the folk stuff in there as well as the classic metal, the thrashiness and everything. Then you got my dear friend Sarah Teets from Mind Maze in there on Champion. How did that come about? Did you write that one with a female vocal in mind, or?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting story. I did not write that with a female vocal in mind. I just had this concept where I was thinking in my head, someone is, they're walking through the streets one day. It's raining, it's cold, and they happen to come upon a cemetery with all the crosses, and then they just get really inspired to, sit down or kneel down in front of one of the graves and just kind of, thank this soldier who they don't know for everything they've done and all their freedoms. And so I give it to Alan Tecchio, and he calls me up and he's like, I think this would sound better if a female sung it. And I had never thought about that. It didn't even cross my mind. But I said, you know what? Let's do it, you know? And I knew Sarah. I've known her for a long time. And,
Right.
you know, as you probably know, I've done one of their records.
Right. My favorite of theirs so far.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. So, you know, I've known the Teets family for quite a long time. And because I was thinking, I was racking my brain, who could I get? Who could I get? And then I was like, well, Sarah lives close by, so I could kind of go to her house and rehearse with her, and I could get her into the studio. So I got in touch with her. She was only too happy to do it. I went to her house for one rehearsal, and I didn't even need to go because she had it perfect, you know. And she not only sings the song, she plays flute.
Right, right.
And so it came out really, really cool. And you know, it's cool. It's a song that gives you a little break from all like the bone crunching metal, you know.
Right. And your bass tone sounds. I'm actually. By the way, I'm actually talking to Sarah and Jeff tomorrow about their new stuff, which is funny.
Great.
These happen on back-to-back days, but
Yeah.
But on the new album, your bass tone seems beefed up. Tell me about that. Was that intentional or just what?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a engineer or a mixing guy, but I can tell you what happened. So, you know, I recorded the bass like I normally do, and usually I just have like when I record, I have a direct track and then another track that's dirty, and usually they're mixed. So what Eric Rachel did, and he's the guy who mixed it, he took my bass and he had the direct track and he had the dirty track, but then he did something that I had never heard of before. He put a sub bass on the bass. So it's something that you really can't hear, but you could feel it. So this really low-ended sub bass he put on it, and it gave the bass this monstrous, you know, this monstrous tone, and it's fat. And I when I heard it, I was like, wow, that is better than I could have ever dreamed. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not not being a bass guy. I don't understand a lot of the stuff with bass. I just know when the tone strikes the right chord. And of course, on your records, they always are more pronounced anyway, in part because you're a bassist, in part because you understand that heavy metal, you want to hear all of the instruments. The bass needs to be up there, just like in a lot of stuff, it just gets buried.
I know.
But you also used both 4 and 6 string on this one. And for those of us who aren't as enlightened, what does the 8 string, what does the 8 string give you that maybe the 4 string doesn't? What does that add?
Well, what the 8 string is, it's kind of comparable to a 12 string guitar.
Right.
When you hit a note on the 8 string, your finger is actually hitting 2 notes. It's hitting a low note and then the octave of the note. So you get a really full, big sound. So I started playing the 8 string, you know, because Ross the Boss and Joey DeMeo was doing it back in the day. And then I liked it so much that I decided to use it on some Silent Assassins tunes, and I'm really digging it. You know, the tone and it just cuts through so nice.
Yeah, you used both on one of the tracks, I think, right? Which one was that one?
Yeah, so the on the title track, there's no guitar at all. It's just 4-string bass, 8-string bass, and some keyboards with Alan.
Right.
And I just thought that was just kind of like a fun thing, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I was like, yeah, it might be cool just to have just all bass on a tune and just a really mellow kind of vibe, sexy kind of vibe.
Which Weird that it would be horror Babylon, a sexy kind of vibe, right?
Right.
Oh man. Okay, so I've stolen you for a little while here. I'll let you get back to it shortly, but real quick, I had a couple more for you. So metal is not about perfection, but as a musician, a creative entity, you want to make things perfect. How do you know when to sort of set something down and walk away? I mean, when do you reach that point with the album where it's like, I can keep tinkering, I can make it better, and you're finally like, no, I got to let this go?
Yeah, and you know what? There is always I'm always wrestling with that, because like you'll hear it, and to to the guy, to the engineer or to the mixing guy, it sounds fine, but I hear something and I don't even know what it is. But there is a point where I'm just like, okay, enough already. I give up. It's done. Because I say to myself, the mixing guy thinks it's fine. The engineer thinks it's fine. I'm not gonna go crazy. So there's always that point, I mean, and I wrestle with that with every song because you're listening to every instrument and you're trying to just make it as good as possible. But like you said a little earlier, I do believe that metal should definitely not be perfect. Should have some cool kind of sloppiness going on. So I'm always wrestling with that. But yeah, there's always a point where something hits me and I'm like, okay, I give up. I'm out,
All right, so just for fun, before we get out of here, we're talking about classic metal right now because we're talking Silent Assassins. I know you have the same love for some of the same bands that I do. But if you ask most fans, you ask them, hey, what's your favorite album by this band? What's your favorite album by that band? You're going to get different answers. So for you, what is that essential album for these 5 bands? Manowar.
When I was younger, I loved the first album, but now I say it's the second album.
Nice. Judas Priest.
Oh man,
that's hard, right?
That's oh man. When I was younger, I was in love with Screaming for Vengeance, and now that I'm older, I'm probably gonna go with Stained Glass.
It's funny. I always cheat with that one because the first album I actually heard was Unleashed in the East. And to me, that's still the seminal album, even though it's a faux live album.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing album.
So Saxon, I saw you were wearing Saxon in your new video the other day. So.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really, really tough one. Strong Arm of the Law.
Strong Arm, nice. I love a lot of their newer stuff too. They've been putting out. It's like there was this sort of dearth there of for a while, and then suddenly in the late '90s, they really started coming back with some excellent stuff.
They, you know what? They just don't sound dated. They just keep with everything. God bless them.
Yep, absolutely. And Biff's voice just sounds as incredible as ever. One of our favorite bands. Which is your essential Kiss album?
Oh man. Everybody wants me to say Alive, but I'm going to say Rock and Roll Over.
Right there. Yeah. That's my album. All right. I was torn here between these two. I was going to say Metallica, but you know what? We'll stick with the real old school Iron Maiden.
Yeah, for me, Killers. Yeah.
For me, it was still the first album, that very first one. It was funny because we had this record store downtown where I lived, and we went and we picked up, and we got like a 33-inch, but it was like a 45, right? So we came back and we put it on, but because it was so big, we put it on 33 RPM, and we hear this, The Drifter, and it's like this really evil thing. We're like, this is so sick. And then one day it was like, should we speed this up? And we did. And we're like, oh, we're such assholes. But that was where I fell in love with Iron Maiden and everything. All right, so before I let you sneak out of here, I'd be remiss. Obviously, Symphony X, the tour didn't happen. We're about due for a new album here. Are you guys working on some writing for that this off time or this summer? Or?
Well, what we decided is as soon as the virus thing kind of slows down a little bit, we're going to get together and write a new record. We've told Nuclear Blast that we're ready to start writing, so they know, and so the wheels are going to start, I would say, within about a month or so.
All right, beautiful. Mike, you are awesome. Thank you, my friend. Look forward to talking with you soon, and hopefully this album comes out next month like it's supposed to, because it's a beast, and I love it, and I'm glad you're just still continuing to put out that classic stuff along with everything else you do. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the support, and we'll talk soon.
Take it easy.
All right. Take care, Russ.